Hey, welcome to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and today I'm not even reviewing a fountain pen. Now, you'll see one in the video, but I'm not going to review it. It's already been done. Today, I want to look at a couple things. This, while I'm waving this around, is the Minimalism Art Dot Grid Notebook. And a friend recommended this to me. He found out, that he'd seen a couple of these videos, knows that I'm into fountain pens. He's into gel pens, which actually I am too. But he uses these notebooks a lot and sings their praises, says they're really good. So we're going to take a look at that. As we do our ink test, I'm also going to try out this paper and see if it's fountain pen and fountain pen ink friendly. And so we'll get to that here in a second. And the ink we're going to try today is a Monteverde ink. It is Caribbean Blue. I got a box of Monteverde ink that came with a pen that I bought not that long ago, and I have not even tried them all yet, believe it or not. This one I have. This was one of the first I went to because even just on the camera, I mean, look at that blue. Just pretty cool. So I wanted to know if maybe this might actually be that bright blue that I've been looking for, kind of the sky blue I've been looking for. So we're going to check this out. Let's flip the camera and take a closer look at the Caribbean Blue and the Minimalism Art. That's hard to say. Minimalism Art notebook. All right, well, let's start with the ink. Again, this is Monteverde's Caribbean Blue, and what I was looking for when I got this ink, first off, I got several bottles of ink that came included with a pen that I bought not that long ago, and when I did, I saw this and I thought that may be, hopefully, just kind of what I was looking for to hit a sweet spot. I like this J. Blue Azure, or Azure, Azure Blue. Let's put it in English for me because I am not a French speaker. I bought this ink and hoping that actually it would look a lot like that. It's a little bit lighter, not quite as saturated. I do like it, but it's kind of one of those inks that it works well in some pens in terms of how it goes down on paper, and then in others it just doesn't. Some pens just don't highlight the color of the ink as well. Once you get into inks and things like that, you'll kind of start to see that pen really makes a big difference on the ink and vice versa. So anyway, I wanted one that had a little bit more saturated color, and I saw this and thought, as long as I'm getting this thrown in as a freebie, I'm gonna check this out, and I have been very pleased with this ink. I think it just about exactly what I was hoping for in terms of saturation and shade. So on that, I'm just going to tell you ahead of time, I do really like it. So how does it perform? For my testing, as always, I use a glass dip pen. It makes it just easy to do this and easy to clean up and is consistent. So that's one thing I do. This is Rhodia dot pad paper, and this is the number 16 spiral, so that gives you some idea if you're familiar with that paper. It's a white paper, not a cream colored paper. I normally in my pen reviews use this. This is a marker pad from an art supply store, and I find that it takes ink very, very well. It is off-white. It's kind of a cream color, so I don't use it as my main paper in ink reviews, but I'm going to show you that just because I use that all the time to show you how it performs on that as well. And bonus, I have an extra fine nib here that I'm also going to put it through, or a fine. I forget every now and then what a pen is. Let's see here. Yes, extra fine. What do you know? Got that one right. So an extra fine nib that I'll also show you how that writes. So by the time this is done, you ought to have a pretty good idea about this ink. So as I said, I really wanted this kind of a color of ink because every now and then just a really not as dark blue to me is pretty cool. A sky blue, water blue sort of a thing, Florida Keys kind of thing. And so that's why I chose that. I do usually keep a lot of blues around, and I'll show you a couple of those here in a second. So let's start with some dry time stuff. As you can see, it doesn't have problems on Rhodia with any feathering, no ghosting, or anything like that. There is just a little bit. Let me go ahead and show this to you and jump ahead of myself a little bit. You can probably see that. There was, using the glass dip pen, because it writes pretty wet. These are about where I was dipping it and getting more ink on the pen. There was a little bit of bleed through
on Rhodia. And so there is that, and at the intersections, just a few places where that water test grid is, but you notice that all through this writing there's really not. But I did dip the pen here and got it pretty wet, and it did do just a little bit of bleed through spots. Not bad, certainly far worse inks on that than this, but you know, it did do that just a little bit. And as you can see here, it was quite wet where it did that. That A and that D are actually closed in from the wetness and thickness of that line. So there's that, just, you know, letting you know everything that I'm seeing here. Okay, so let's get some ink on this pen and do the dry time test. And I'm just going to do a blotch and a blotch. I bet that gets bleed through, and a blotch and a blotch. And we'll see how those go at 5 seconds and 10. Okay, that's 5. And 10, 20, 30. Okay, so that gives you a good idea for actually how wet that was at 5 and 10 to be that dry at 30. Dry at 30 is really quite good. So that gives you some idea of that. And if it dries this quickly in 30, then it's doing really quite well, because that's a blotch. That's not a letter. That's what I did. So let's look at the water test of this ink. You know, one thing about fountain pens, different from, say, gel and ballpoint pens, is that a lot of the inks are more susceptible to water and the damage that might cause. Let me fix this camera here. I must have bumped that. Just a little bit more susceptible, and so this matters. And you can, if you're needing particularly an ink that will last for a really long time and not be as susceptible to water damage, then you do need to look at some tests and reviews and information about different inks. Noodler's, for example, has some very good color fast inks, and a bunch of different companies. There are a lot out there, but it's something you need to look for, particularly if that's something you're going to be concerned with in terms of writing a letter. For example, sometimes I pick one that I know is going to be more waterproof if I'm mailing a letter, just because you don't always know what's going to happen between your mailbox and theirs. And so, you know, every now and then, it's rare, but every now and then, water's a problem. Let's put a few drops here. And that's been drying for a wow. I think that may already. I don't always know how much is going to come out of that thing. So anyway, that gives you some idea. And do you know what I did? I forgot a paper towel. I'll be right back. And through the magic of the pause button, look at that. Okay, so is it a water fast ink? No. No, it is not. But even when it makes a mess, that's a nice color. And so that gives you some idea. If you are needing this to be more archival, then this is not the ink for you. If you're just looking for a really beautiful blue, then this definitely is. I mean, I really, really like this color. And let me show you. Again, this is an extra fine, and of course it's a nice match for that pen, I think. This is a Wing Sung. This will give you an idea of how it looks if you write it with a finer line than that glass dip pen. And this is the 3000 and, what is this? Is this a 3010, 3003, 3000? This is a Wing Sung 3010, unless I'm wrong, in which case it's a 3000 and something else. And I forgot to look that up. That's the only problem with all these pens named after similar numbers. But this is an extra fine. Can't write today very well. That gives you some idea of how that performs in a finer line. And so it shows a little bit darker, although you can see that hopefully you can see that there is variation there, and in this line it does see how there's light, dark, light, dark. So really nice variation in the ink, great saturation. The flow is really good. I've had no problems with this ink whatsoever, and I like it. In terms of the paper that I normally use, let me show you how that works. And let's see, where'd that dip pen go? Let's refresh that a little bit. It's been sitting out a couple of minutes. And this is a marker pad paper, Yeah, that's good and wet. I like it because it's smooth. It has just a slight bit of texture, but it's not toothy or scratchy or anything like that. It takes fountain pen ink really well. That's pretty wet, and you notice there's no bleed through, ghosting, anything. I like it, for testing. I find it to be, testing a pen is good, and it's a consistent base for those tests. So I really do like this, and it shows the ink well. But one of the things that I really like about it is, see how well that performs? I get that at Hobby Lobby, and it's called the Master's Touch Marker Pad, if you're ever interested in that. Let's do a swab. Somebody remarked the other day, I don't know why you guys do that. Well, I don't either, except, now maybe from a fountain pen, you've got everything that you need here, but there are people who use fountain pen ink for other things and art projects and things like that. And so then this gives you a better idea. In fact, I wonder if there's somebody ought to do art with fountain pen ink and Q-tips. It's actually not a bad way to go. That gives you just this big eye-popping example of how that looks and that color. So really, really cool blue. It just, Caribbean blue from Monteverde. Here lately, with a little bit less smog in the air, people in LA and here in Texas, we've been able to see some skies like that, and it has been awesome. So let's take a look at that notebook right quick. Notebook. This is an A5 size. For us Americans, that's a 5.8 inch by 8.3 inch sheet page, and it has 176 pages or 88 sheets. This is a polyurethane fake leather soft cover, really good quality though, really nicely done. Now it wears in. It's a little bit stiff when you first get it, but it does wear in, and it's 100 GSM paper. They claim that it is fountain pen friendly, no feathering, no ghosting, no bleed through, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm curious to see whether or not that's true. I've actually had this for months. I have a notebook that I do a lot of I'm a minister. I have a lot of sermon notes and outlines and class notes and all that kind of stuff. And that notebook is filling up quickly. And so this is next in line. I just didn't get to it as quickly as I thought I would. And so I'm going to review it before I even use it for you, just to see. I want to see how this paper really does handle everything. That's a little note from the Minimalism Art people. This is, if you're trying to support a small business, this is a small business out in California. And so very reasonably priced. And that was when my friend recommended this to me, he uses these for his teaching and everything, and color-coded notes with gel pens, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that he said is that this paper is really great quality and it's a really good deal. Well, quality and a deal, that's the kind of thing I like. So I went and checked it out. I got mine on Amazon. I'm not sure the current price, but I'll put a link in the description below. I got mine for $7.95. I think that's still the current price. And they have it in this dot grid or the square grid, and all the normal choices and lots of different colors, although different colors of the binding depends on what's in stock at the time, but they do have a lot of choices as those come in and out of stock. So here we are. I'm going to do 3 different fountain pens, and I guess I really should start while I've got it wet and it's still got ink on it with this dip pen. This is my glass dip pen, and this is that Monteverde. And that's Caribbean Blue. I'm just going to write that once, though. Ooh, I ran out of room. Look at that. So, there you go. We'll look at that here in a second. Let's just go ahead and run down the line. Let's start with the extra fine. This is that Wing Sung. I think it's the 3010. If I'm wrong, then you're just going to have to fuss at me each time that I mention that. I don't know. It's not a remember the numbers kind of a day. That's an extra fine. That's what I was supposed to tell you, right? So that's an extra fine. That'll give you an idea as we flip the page in a second and see how it does. I do already notice that extra fine wrote a really nice clean line. This is fairly, it's 100 GSM, so this is not thin paper. But even, you know, I had a calendar that was thicker paper than this, and that stuff, well, we say in Texas it bled like a stuck pig, but that's not a very nice image, is it? This is, of course, a Lamy Safari. And this is Noodlers. Doesn't look like it in this lighting, but it is. It is a midnight blue. I can't write today, can I? That's okay. This isn't a writing review. And this is a fine point. And this is the Diplomat Magnum. And it's a medium. Medium point, and I don't know what blue this is. It's just blue, okay? And let me just do a little bit of this. This one has a nice wet nib. As long as I'm using up a piece of paper in here for that. Just see if we can push it a little bit. Let's see how that looks. Nice, look at that. That's what you want to see. Of course, you can see a little bit of shadowing through just because of the color of the paper and, you know, normal stuff. There may be just the slightest, what is that, the Lamy? That's the Lamy with Noodlers. A little bit of shadowing there, a little, not really bleed through, maybe a point right there, but not bad. Nothing from the glass dip pen, which is a nice wet broad line. So that's good, and that tells you something about that ink as well. Nothing from the Wing Sung that had the Monteverde either. So just this Noodlers from the Lamy fine point, nothing from the Diplomat medium at all, and I even scribbled a bunch there hoping to make it go through. So, you know, you do test an ink on a paper. It's kind of like, you know, things you're going to do that when you're going to clean your furniture, you test a spot that's never going to be seen. Sometimes you need to do that with ink and a particular pen. I would say this is probably the ink, not the pen, because, you know, it's a fine nib. So there you go. Not bad performance at all. And so what I would do, see, is I'll use this. I'll just remember that Noodler's Midnight Blue tends to show a little bit more through and just use a different ink. But man, this Diplomat, which is a wet medium and a broad European medium, you know, theirs are a little bit thicker than, say, Japanese. Nothing came through there at all. So not bad at all. I think the quality of this is nice. It comes with bookmark, which for me is great because like I say, I use this for classes and sermon outlines and things like that. And so I just like to pick up where I left off the next day, the next week. And so that helps. So whether you're a journaler or a student or whatever, you know, if you're on a budget, because sometimes a fountain pen friendly notebook can be expensive, $7.95. That's a good deal. You definitely are getting at least what you pay for. So my friend made an excellent recommendation, and I should have brought a gel pen in here. He said it's great with gel pens, and I like those too. But this gives you an idea. If anything is going to go through it, it's going to be these, and only one of those just kind of shadowed through. It's not bleeding, but it's shadowing. So excellent. Very, very good, and I appreciate the recommendation. That's the Minimalism Art journal, and you can get those from their website or from Amazon, and I'll leave a link below. God bless you, and have a great week.